Despite extensive maintenance work by Joburg Water and Rand Water between June and July 2025, water supply issues continue to plague multiple areas across Johannesburg. From the 3rd of June to the 21st of July, Rand Water conducted major work on critical bulk water infrastructure, expecting to stabilise water systems across the city. However, many residents report that supply remains unreliable, with ongoing interruptions in several communities. And this week, frustration reached a peak in the Westbury and Newclare areas, where striking residents blocked roads in protest. The demonstration is directly linked to the prolonged water crisis, which has left many households struggling for consistent access to water even months after the promised maintenance was completed. I'm now joined by Dr. Ferrial, Executive Manager at WaterCAN. Doctor, good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Masachaba, and good morning to all your viewers.
Now, firstly, Doctor, I'm looking at the recent protests in Johannesburg over water shortages. From what we know, Rand Water completed their planned maintenance operations that were scheduled for June and July 2025. And yet here we are in late August, still seeing significant water-related protests. So what's your assessment of why communities are still without adequate water supply months after this maintenance was supposed to resolve infrastructure issues?
So the issue is that when you're looking at the Rand Water maintenance, Rand Water is your bulk water supplier, right? And we did say that, we said that quite a bit, that Rand Water needs to fix its systems, and it has the bulk water systems. They sell water to the municipalities, so a range of municipalities in about 4 provinces. So they needed to upgrade their systems. The challenge we have and what we're experiencing in Johannesburg is the Joburg Water has not been able to do the amount of maintenance we need in Johannesburg for systems to work properly. So what we're seeing is we're going to be seeing this cycle until we actually get more budget for Joburg Water and they start fixing. We're going to see these cycles of, as you go into winter, there is something, and if there's any power cuts, we have issues because they can't hand and withstand, the pumps break down, the pumps don't work anymore. And then also when you start getting into summer, they start saying there's an increase in demand. But for me, I think that for as long as Joburg Water does not have an increased budget, we are going to be in this mess we are in right now. And the thing, and you rightfully said, it's not just one isolated area anymore. It's across Joburg, from Soweto to Midrand. Each area has at some point experienced some kind of intermittent supply.
Correct. Now, when Rand Water announced this maintenance back in May 2025, they indicated it would affect different areas throughout the 18-day period. Do you think the scope of work was adequately planned, or did they underestimate the scale of infrastructure problems that they would encounter?
I think there's a little bit of that. I think there is a little bit of underestimating the impact downriver, so to speak. But I think that also there needed to be, Joburg Water also was on the back foot. And I don't think that they were kind of prepared for what would happen with the Rand Water maintenance. So it actually highlighted the weakness of and the instability of the Joburg Water system. And so that was very clear, because what happened is, as maintenance ended with Rand Water, there were many systems that were Joburg Water held that could not recover fast enough or did not recover as they should have. And that is why you saw, very long outages in the east of Joburg, in the south of Joburg, and it didn't help that in addition to that, in the last 2 weeks or maybe even a week, we saw that there were 2 pump stations that were not working properly. There's the Crosby pump and the Hector Norris pump, sorry. And that has affected people again, widespread. People don't have water.
So from your perspective, Doctor, at WaterCAN, what are communities telling you about their experiences during and after this maintenance period? I mean, are they seeing the promised improvements, or are there areas where the situation has actually deteriorated?
So it's consistently bad. And I think that we didn't expect there to be a change. And I think that wording from Joburg Water and Rand Water needs to be worked out better, because you can't say we're doing this, it's going to be better for you, when in essence, it's only better at a particular point. But at Joburg water level, we're still dealing with the mess we're in right now. So the stories from people on the ground is heart-wrenching. And this is what we're going to raise at the Joburg Crisis Alliance Summit today, which is the summit, the 7th summit, where water issues are is given an hour on the agenda. Joburg Water has been invited to the meeting. We don't know if they will be attending. But I think that, from things like using SASSA grants to pay young guys to go and fetch your water because you can't carry the buckets, to people trying to figure out how to take their meds because they don't have water. It's just, I don't think that the city of Johannesburg officials fully get a picture. It's not just about not having water. It's impacting people's livelihoods, people's health. In the last week in Coronationville, and Westbury area, schools were closed 3 days in a row. Kids were sent home. So this cannot, and I was told by people from Coronationville that this is a regular occurrence because they've been going through this for about 10 years.
Now, what role has Joburg Water played in this crisis? I mean, we know Rand Water supplies the bulk water, but are we also seeing failures at the municipal distribution level that are compounding these problems?
I think that is the key point where we're finding the failures. And I think that Joburg Water has a good plan. We're in the presidential work streams that was set up by the president who came into Joburg and set up the work streams. Work stream 2 is on water. There's a really good plan. It's there. And we spoke to key engineers outside of Joburg Water who've been in water, said if we follow that plan, we can actually fix the Joburg water issues over the next 2 to 3 years. But every time there's a report back, all the issues are in red because there's no budget. Now, where do we go to fight about the budget? It's a city of Joburg issue. And we know that politically, economically, everything, the city of Joburg is quite strained and it's in a mess, let's be honest. So until we fix that, Joburg Water's hands are tied because they're dependent on the budget from city of Joburg. I don't know if you know this, but there's this arrangement with the city, with the municipality. It's called a sweeping arrangement where they allocate funding or budget to each of their entities, but they can take that budget back at a whim. So, and I've said this before, and Joburg Water cannot function. So imagine you have a budget, you get the money, you work according to that budget, but before you pay your contractors, the money's taken away.
So is Rand Water carrying out this maintenance work with their own internal teams, or are they putting these projects out to tender with private contractors? And if
you mean Joburg Water?
Yeah, Joburg Water, excuse me. And if this work is being done through the tender system, are we now seeing a pattern where contractors are winning bids but then failing to deliver on their promises?
I think it's a combination. They do have internal engineers, they do have internal teams, they have depots that actually meet out, we can call them and they go out to fix leaks, etc. But they do have contracts, right? Because they don't have enough teams. And I think, yes, I think that that's part of the challenge. I mean, if you look at, but also the fact that they can't pay contractors, so then they won't do the work that they need to do. So that's the challenge. They need to get the budget to pay them. But also, I think that we have to be honest, is that Johannesburg has grown. Joburg Water has stayed the same size and the same budget for I don't know how long. So if you're given that, you don't have enough teams. And yes, I think that's part of the problem. I think the kind of mindset we're seeing is the reliance on JoJo tanks and water tankers. And we need to move away from thinking that that must be the norm of how we get our water.
I'd like us to broaden this discussion now from what we're seeing in Johannesburg. Doctor, do you think that we are prepared as a country for the increasing water stress brought on by climate change?
Not at all. I think on paper, there are some good policies and there's good planning. But I think in the practical, if you just look at the small things, like having a maintenance issue where there's a challenge, I don't think that we are prepared. People are scrambling to try and get water to people. And in fact, a lot of the time, it's civil society who's highlighting areas that people don't have water. It's civil society that's doing exactly what we did during COVID, where we know, there are people that will say, this is where the pensioners are, this is where the old age home is, this is where water needs to go. even if you're in your last insert, in terms of flooding, because climate change affects, most of it is affected through water. It's either drought or it's flooding. And I don't think we're prepared in any way to deal with the kind of challenges and the impacts that climate change has in store for us. We haven't shown that we can do that with KwaZulu-Natal floods, Eastern Cape floods, droughts. We're not adequately pre-planning. And we know what's going to happen, but I don't think we have the systems in place. And I think still, at a government level, I think that they know that climate change is real, but I don't think they understand the measures that needs to be taken to make sure that we can deal with the risks.
And the recent Day Zero crisis in Cape Town was a huge wake-up call. But have we actually learned those lessons nationally? I mean, are cities like Johannesburg implementing the early warning systems and conservation measures that could prevent a similar crisis?
So I think, yes, there's a lot to learn from that. The Department of Water and Sanitation has established, they have a platform for water security, but they're not looking at it from a perspective of climate change. They're looking at it because of the amount of leaks we have, that we're losing almost half of our water through leaks. So they've set up this platform in eThekwini and in Gauteng to look at that. And they have experts who were part of the Cape Town crisis advising. But that's a very small system, a small kind of process. We need much more than that. We need to look at that in other areas that are hard hit. But also, we need to make sure that municipalities are consistent. So when Cape Town's out of the drought zone, people go on using water as they should. But we need to make sure that we can consistently use less water, that we can have water equally across the board. So in Cape Town, what people didn't see is that the ones who had water were fine in terms of reducing, but it was the poorer communities that really struggled. So we need to figure out how to deal with that. And also with climate change, the impacts are felt hardest by the most vulnerable in society. And we really need to be better prepared to deal with that.
All right. Before we let you go, Doctor, and just in summary, from your organization's perspective, what immediate interventions need to happen right now to prevent these water supply crises from becoming a recurring pattern? And what alternative approach would Rand Water be adopting at this point to solve the problem?
So I think if we're looking just at Johannesburg for now, but I think nationally, we need to be able to link our water challenges to climate change. We need to fix our wastewater treatment works, which is spewing out sewage into our rivers and streams. And we need to improve our drinking water quality so that people, like at schools, clinics, have drinking water. So that's, for me, it's a priority. Then if you come down to Johannesburg, it's very clear that we need a stable government at local government level. We need to be able to see that this government can take decisions on funding that allows its entities to do the work that it needs to do. Because it cannot have an entity like Joburg Water that doesn't have control over its own budget, because then we are never going to progress on the water challenges we have in Johannesburg. So there has to be a mind shift. In December, the city of Joburg approved ring fencing of budget for water and sanitation, but they're dragging their feet because they don't want to actually put into place the processes to allow that to happen. It's almost 9 months now since that decision was taken, and no ring fencing has occurred. Until they actually stop playing political games, that's when we're going to see improvement.
We'll have to leave it right there. But Doctor, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
That was Dr. Ferrial Adam, Executive Manager at WaterCAN.